Good morning, afternoon, or evening. Welcome to All Things Social Security. I am Stephanie Joy, the attorney at Joy Disability. Welcome to the channel, and I hope you enjoy the video. Have a great day. Bye-bye. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, guys. Hope everybody's well. I am Stephanie Joy with All Things Social Security and the law practice of Joy Disability. I had just came across this just published the other day by the SSA's Office of Inspector General, and it has to do with audits of the SSA. So, I always like to dig into these when I see them. I haven't even read it yet. I just saw the header, so I'm just going to share it with you as I go along. All right. Audit finds errors in administrative sanctions and benefit withholding process. Sanctions and benefit withholding process. So I'll just jump into it here. So the Office of Inspector General issued an audit report finding that the SSA made errors in processing those administrative sanctions, as noted in the title, and recovering related overpayments tied to fraud and other sanctionable conduct. So remember, guys, there's overpayments that are by accident, a lot of them, by claimants who aren't paying attention usually, but it's not intentional. But the mere fact that it's such a pain in your rear would kind of make you want to be more careful. You know what I'm saying? And then there's overpayments that are from fraud. And those are the ones that would be sanctionable. They don't sanction people for their, lack of paying attention. Just so you know, they're not doing that. They note that administrative sanctions are designed to deter fraud and abuse by temporarily withholding benefits from individuals who make false statements or fail to report information affecting eligibility or payment amounts. So remember, fraud or abuse in doing that, not just pure accident. And there are kind of ways to know, I think, at times when someone could claim that it was inadvertent, but because of their actions, you can tell that clearly it was not. Circumstantial evidence, if you will. So this particular audit, kind of titled the same way as what we're talking about, reviewed the SSA's handling of sanctions cases between 2017 and 2022. The OIG found that SSA employees and systems made errors in 75% of the sampled cases reviewed. Based on projections from the sample, auditors estimate that SSA improperly processed sanctions for approximately 454 people, resulting in an estimated 49.6 million in improper payments. Okay. Among the issues identified, SSA withheld benefits for the wrong months, for an inappropriate duration, or before appeal rights expired. So I'm curious, did they pay out too much or too little? Or is it a combination of both, but the net is overpayments? Kind of hard for me to figure it out from this point yet, because it says it should have suspended benefits to impose sanctions for individuals who were receiving benefits but did not. So people were getting benefits that they should not have been getting. Okay, we got that one. That's bullet point number 2. Bullet point number 1 was withheld benefits for wrong months, for inappropriate duration, or before appeal rights expired. So, and the last part about that, guys, before appeal rights expired, they shouldn't start, in my estimation, withholding a benefit because it was an overpayment if you are appealing the fact that it's an overpayment, because it's in dispute. And that's what appeals are for, right? So, and that's particularly when, remember, you have the right. Now, usually it's got to be within 10 days. So this seems a little conflated here. You have a ridiculous 10-day window, which I hope they change one of these days, that, all right, if you're appealing the overpayment, which you have 60 days, and if you, I think it's 60, and if you, within 10 days, ask us to continue your benefits on the appeal you're appealing, even though you have 60 days to appeal it, we'll let your benefits continue pending your appeal. I mean, I get they have to hear it from you that you want them to do that, but 10 days seems very short, considering mail often doesn't get here for 2 weeks. Just saying. The third bullet is they did not adequately document sanctions development, determinations, and approvals, or add required language to SSA records about imposed or deferred sanctions. I can definitely attest to that. I don't generally do overpayments, but on a rare occasion I have. I was a little soft during COVID, for instance, and it almost always ends up being unpaid, even when you win. So go figure. But I will definitely say the SSA, we had to go all the way to hearing on both of the 2 that I did, despite me giving all the paperwork, all the charts, everything. I mean, it was like hundreds and hundreds of hours of work pro bono. The one wasn't supposed to be pro bono, but the judge still hasn't just reviewed the fee petition. So, but if SSA would have just looked at it and then explained, well, no, you can't just say we find there's still an overpayment. Okay, that means nothing to anybody. So we had to go all the way to the judge. The judge, of course, is always far more diligent, They are professionals. They look at everything you give them because they know that their sling could be up in federal court. You know what I mean? And they're just more professional. They're not, I'm not even saying they're all lawyers or anything, but I don't know. There's just so much more that has to be done. So leaving out required language, I'm sure they never explained adequately, if at all, what the overpayment was about. It's very hard to defend against something when you don't know what the accusation is. They also did not send correct or complete initial sanction determinations notices or benefit suspension notices. So they were just not sending those out, or the people didn't receive them for whatever reason. I'd expect it's probably that they're not sending them out, which is contrary to the rules. And people didn't know they were going to be having their benefits stopped. So therefore, they can't even appeal it because they don't even know it's a problem until suddenly it's stopped. They did not recover overpayments in accordance with the policy for individuals whom SSA overpaid because of a sanctionable event, such as failing to report a marriage or income. They did not recover overpayments in accordance with the policy. Okay. Yeah. So, there was a window of time in 2024, which is after this, when the SSA, I thought it was a very bad move. I thought it was politically minded, which it was, decided we're just not going to, regardless of whether you're rich or poor, we're not collecting your overpayment beyond, say, 0 or 10% or something like that, like a month. And you could be super wealthy, double income, no kids type of family, They just decided that they were going to go really soft on it. Now, this is after we already have this problem that hasn't been published yet. This whole problem about them not doing things right. And, I've harped on this before. When you inadvertently get an overpayment, you have to pay it back unless it's a hardship case. And that would be dependent on whether you truly have a hardship under objective standards of finances and not, well, I got to pay my credit card. Credit card does not come before the Social Security fund that supports the survival of so many people, or the taxpayers who are, paying for it as they work. So doing that little pretend gambit of, we're just not going to enforce it, was a really bad move. I thought it was really cruel. They knew it wasn't going to last more than 5 months because there was going to be new people in the SSA that weren't going to allow the Social Security funds to be plundered like that. And they didn't care because it was politics. There was an election coming up. So they knew the people would suffer far greater once they were out of office. So they didn't care that they did this now. That's my opinion. Okay. Moving on. The audit found many of the errors stemmed from complex manual processes, inconsistent documentation practices, and limitations in SSA systems used to process sanctions and overpayment recoveries. I can understand that could be true. I think it is very complicated. When I do the overpayments, it is beyond complicated. And, making up Excel spreadsheets to map out every piece of income every single month for 15 years or whatever the time frame is, income and then expenses, and then to show the person was an SGA or whatever, whatever the issue is, once you finally learn what they're saying it is really complicated. And it's very cognitively draining, suffice it to say, because it's so nitpicky. They have computers that should be doing better than when we have to do it here because, we don't have those kind of computers. So they do make a quote about administrative sanctions being an important rule for protecting the integrity of the Social Security programs and deterring fraud. And again, I just want to reiterate, I'm going to say even I'm guessing this part. Most overpayments are probably not from fraud. They're from inadvertent claimants who are not following the rules because they didn't take the time to learn them. That's not really the same as fraud. That is just being stupid. And I say that lightly, guys, because I know it can be complicated. But when you're getting a benefit of anything that is dependent on certain terms being met, it's up to you to make sure you know the terms. It's not like they're not publicly available to you. In fact, every claimant who wins gets them sent to them, but they're always online every single day. And you're online right now, so you know how to be online. Okay. So again, the sanctions don't go against the accidentals, which is most of you who have been through an overpayment. It's against the ones who are abusing or committing fraud. They go on to say that the SSA can strengthen these efforts by improving oversight. Yes. Modernizing system controls. Yes. And ensuring employees consistently follow policies related to sanctions and overpayment recovery. Yes, yes, and yes. I totally agree with all of that. I hate to say it, but they have to hold SSA employees accountable for their actions. There was always a saying that federal employees have a property right in their job, unlike every other employee everywhere else. And I bet you some states have it too. A property right. What does it mean when you own property? If someone wants to take it from you, they have to take you to court. They literally have to go through this entire due process to prove that, you're not legally entitled to that property anymore, whether it's foreclosure, whatever, with legal steps, right? With jobs, we don't have that Right. But as we do with our property. But for federal workers, they had it for their jobs too. So it wasn't like they could be fired because they did something very wrong. There had to be a very, very big to do about it. So I think because the big to do about it takes a lot of time and energy from people who otherwise have jobs that they're trying to do, managers and such, I suspect that a lot of time the smaller things are verbally said, and it's like, don't do it again. And like everyone else who gets a slap on the wrist, they do it again. So I think that's where part of the problem comes out, that the SSA workers, not the good ones, guys. I'm only talking about the bad eggs. Okay. There's bad egg lawyers too. Believe it. I know it all, right? So I think when they start feeling like I can't be fired, it would take them years to fire me. Ha ha. It encourages for those that are so inclined that have bad work ethic and stuff, which unfortunately we have too many of them, it just encourages more bad behavior. Okay. Soapbox. I'm off of it. They did say here, the report noted that SSA began implementing improvements to its system in 2025. Makes sense. Included enhanced tracking and additional processing reminders. However, auditors found further action is needed to improve automation, documentation, notice accuracy, and recovery of overpayments tied to fraud or similar fault. Okay. The OIG did make 7 recommendations to the SSA, including updating policies, strengthening system controls, improving employee documentation requirements, enhancing notice review procedures, and ensuring full recovery of overpayments when appropriate. When appropriate. Remember, guys, it's always when appropriate. So not everyone is going to be expected to fully pay an overpayment. We always kind of make jokes on the Fraud Law Review Fridays, right? When I see a restitution order for $200,000 from this fraudster who stole $200,000 from the SSA, and the person's 70. What's the chance they're going to come up with and pay back $200,000, right? When probably the only income they have is Social Security themselves that they earned back when they were being honest. So the whole restitution thing, I know they got to do it. Just never know. That person could win the lottery and then they can pay back. But a lot of time it's never going to happen. And that's why it's so important that they implement procedures and policies and use all technology at its disposal to stop it before it happens. Because I think prevention it eliminates all the pain that everyone's going to feel, including the bad actor, if it's a bad actor. And it's definitely going to eliminate the pain from a non-bad actor who just inadvertently didn't realize they were violating the rules that did not make them eligible for this month, the past 3 years of benefits. So yeah. All right. So they do have a link for a full report. We won't go into that. And then you can download the PDF, et cetera, et cetera. But I wanted to share that one to you. Yeah. The whole thing about overpayments was, I don't know, it's just been abused. So I'm glad they're getting on top of it, because the more of them that they prevent, the less any of us are going to have to worry about overpayments, because it'll be a much more simplified process for preventing it. All right. Talk to you guys later. Wednesday, 1 p.m. live stream. Be there or be square. And if you can, hop on the 12 p.m. recorded videos that come out every day, because they totally help us bring on more of the 1%, 5%ers who otherwise don't get representation as a general rule. We take them, but we can only take so much. And this channel has definitely opened it up where we could take more. So I greatly appreciate that. So if you guys can continue to watch the 12 p.m. pre-recorders, that would be great. The 1 p.m. live stream, it serves a different purpose. It's not really anything that is of value in that way to the channel and what it's trying to do for the mission, except that sometimes it does bring on members, and it's a fun time. And you can ask questions, and I will give you the answer to whatever question you have if it's answerable, and obviously if it's concerning SSA stuff. All right. I'll talk to you guys later. Have a great week. Bye-bye now.